G'day everyone, welcome to another Toon Under podcast. Southern Hemisphere's biggest, best podcast, all things Newcastle United. I'm joined tonight by Jack. Jack, how are you, mate?
I'm very good. I'm happy. I haven't been on social media for a week or so I'm feeling pretty positive. It's amazing how I've just removed the app off my phone, and it's amazing how much doom scrolling you do when it's there.
Yeah,
You just sort of go on it. And obviously, the way things have been with NUFC Twitter lately, I just thought I'll have a little bit of a break from it. And yeah, it's a bit sad in a way to be having a break, because I remember when I first joined Twitter, I was so excited. I think I tweeted Michael Owen some abuse. This was the first thing I did on it back in the day. But I even remember where I was. I was on for those Geordies. I was on Two Ball Lonnon, which is a road in Fenham. And I was at work. I used to have a job where I drove around Newcastle. And I was like, oh, this Twitter thing, I've heard about that. So I downloaded it. And I was amazed you could direct message celebrities straight away. So it's been a good run on it. I've really enjoyed it, but it's just become shit lately, to be honest. So and it was causing me irritation every time I went on it. So I'm feeling much happier now that I'm off it.
Yeah, good. So that's a great segue, mate. So today or tonight, like you said, it's been a bit doom and gloom. I guess the last 3 weeks haven't gone exactly how most fans would have hoped, I guess, and there does seem to be a bit of a dark cloud maybe that's hovering over the northeast of England at the moment. So what we're going to do tonight, we're here to blow that cloud away, and we're going to bring positive vibes and good energies about all things Newcastle United. So we've put our heads together, Jack. We've come up with a list of 10 things to be positive about Newcastle United at the moment. So like you said, it's easy to get bogged down into the shit, but tonight we're going to lift everyone up and we're going to make everyone feel good about things, and things are never as bad as what they seem. So without further ado, mate, let's get stuck into it. The first thing we want to talk about is the fixture. So you can have the new ball, mate, and open the bowling.
Yeah, all right. The first thing to say about all of this is that it was expected. It's expected that we're going to go through bad patches because football's hard. Elite football level is hard. We've been on loads of podcasts where we've sat here and said expectation management is going to be difficult next season. We're not going to win every game. You know, teams are going to know what we're about more. We're going to have other competitions. So we knew that this was going to happen. So with the fixture list that we had, which was statistically the hardest start in the Premier League this season, it was quite obvious. We had 2 really hard away games and we had 2 pretty hard home games as well. So all of the teams we've played finished in the top 7 last season. This point has been made a lot of times by people who are kind of defending the start to the season. But City and Brighton away are 2 of the hardest games in the league. We never, ever do well at those grounds anyway. We're only 1 point worse off than we were in the corresponding games last season. And we've got these hard games out of the way, which I think is a really important point for later in the season. It's fine margins, really fine margins. We missed good chances against Liverpool, and we missed good chances against Brighton as well at the beginning, which would have been a completely different game. And City, we kind of defended well, even though we didn't have much going forward. They still had to adapt their tactics at home for what we were doing, which is very unusual for Man City to do that. So I think you can't sort of look at 3 defeats without saying who were they against, you know? And before that, we'd absolutely smashed Aston Villa, who were one of our main competitors this season. So, and just in terms of a little stat, in 2002, 2003, so that's after we finished 4th the season before when we were in the Champions League, we only took 4 points from the opening 5 games that season, and we ended up finishing 3rd. So, you know, difficult runs of form are a normal part of football. There's no shame. There's no shame in losing to who we lost to. And we've now got 6 games against mid to lower league teams before we play Arsenal in November. So I think, you can't look at this without acknowledging we've had a really hard start. So it's 3 defeats in a row, but there's reasons around that, and it's very fine margins.
Yeah. So for those of you playing at home who don't have access to a fixture list handy, we've got Brentford, Sheffield United, Burnley, West Ham, Palace and Wolves in our next 6 league games. So they're all entirely winnable games. If we lose, it's not the end of the world. It's fine. Like, teams are allowed to lose games and stuff like that. Don't stress. So that's the first thing out of the way. We've had a tough run, but it looks like like the podcast, the clouds are starting to break up and we can see a bit of sunshine ahead. All right, so we'll go off the second thing, and this is a massive thing to be positive about. What is it, two and a bit weeks? We've got Champions League back again. Our first game at the San Siro against AC Milan. There's probably going to be 200,000 Geordies that fly over for the game. Only 3,000 of them will probably get a ticket, but it's a massive thing. It's going to be a huge occasion, and I think the only thing that's going to be bigger than that first Champions League game is the first Champions League home game. So that if you can't get excited and positive and up and about that, I can't help you anymore. I'm sorry. So
we worked so hard last season for this moment to be in the Champions League. So let's not just waste it by being worried about form when we're going to the Champions League. Like, this is what all of that stress, all of that fight, all of that success and those amazing wins and all those goals last season, that's what it was all working towards. So let's just enjoy it.
Photos. Yeah.
It is a novel. It is a novelty this season. And some people might say, oh, that's a small club mentality, but it is, it's the first time we've been in it for 20 years and we've got three massive
exciting.
clubs.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. It is a novelty. We're not just there to make up the numbers. We're second favourites to go through the group as well. But let's actually enjoy it. Enjoy the journey as well as the destination, because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. Like, there's 6 games. You could do a documentary on every one of these games. Every game is going to be a big event. Whether it's at home or away, it's going to be huge. Like, the storylines that are sort of intertwined between the whole lot are massive. Like, AC Milan with Tonali going back to the San Siro. That's such a big stadium in Europe, and AC Milan are a massive team worldwide. And then you've got Dortmund with the wall and sort of war flags, a bit of a flag off, if you will. Like, the atmosphere for both them games is going to be absolutely massive. And then you've got like an absolute global powerhouse in PSG. Like, it's just going to be huge in every part. Like, regardless of the result, every game is going to be unreal. There's going to be so many stories that will live through generations. Like, we can still talk about what happened in our last Champions League experience like it was yesterday. Like, we lost our first 3 league games and ended up winning our next 3 and going through. And I remember like it was yesterday, and it was 20 years ago. Like, imagine what the club is now and what they want to be in the future. And everyone's going to talk about these 6 games, regardless of how they go. It's so exciting.
You say the name Andy Griffin to fans of our age, and you just think of one thing, don't they? It's the goal against Juventus.
Yeah.
And who's it going to be this time? It's probably going to be someone,
it's going to be a Dan Burn.
Or the cells of Dan Burn might get a goal, and they'll write themselves into folklore. So that's what's going to happen. So
it's just going to be
gotta get excited
massive.
about it.
You can have the next one, mate. What do we, Eddie?
Yeah, I'll talk about Eddie Howe a little bit, because fair enough, he's had a bit of criticism, some of his substitutions.
He's had a couple of clips, you might say.
Yeah. Some of the decisions he's made have been questioned. I think it's a big learning curve for him this season, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you learn a lot more from challenges, from adversity, than you do from just winning every week. He'll be learning all about his squad in this tough run. It's kind of different match situations as well, which you might not have come across before. Sort of we're kind of a big club now, so that the onus is on us. Like, what happened against Liverpool is going to be scarred into everyone's heart forever, probably, because it was absolutely devastating. And to be honest, he was taught a bit of a lesson that day by Klopp and sort of tactics and how to manage a game like that. And it's also how to manage such a big squad where he's got talent, on the bench. He hasn't had that before with us, really. It's been a week, so the team's kind of picked itself for him in some ways.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing that he's having these tough experiences now, because he's going to learn from them. That he's going to learn from them. He's going to be sitting there for these 2 weeks. Him and Jason Tyndall are going to be bunkered away somewhere, poring over clips of these games, thinking, what could we do? Where we're going to position the players next time, and which substitutions am I going to make where? I feel
sorry for his coaching staff if they've got families over these next 2 weeks, because they'll be in some, like you said, some underground bunker, and just it's a lock in. We're not leaving here until this is sorted.
That's it.
And
He's going to be watching those last 10 minutes of that Liverpool game. And if fans think that they're sort of burnished on our brains forever, how do you think Eddie's going to feel about it? He's still having nightmares about the games against Liverpool last season. So
yeah.
But something I think which is often missed with him is at Bournemouth, the adversity he was in at that club. There's an amazing documentary called, I can't remember what it's called now. It's got numbers in the title, but it's about what him and Tyndall did at Bournemouth, where they saved them from.
Where's it available? Can you remember?
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah.
All right. Type in.
I think it's called -17 or something, because that was how many points.
Oh, that was their point deduction. Yeah.
Yeah. It's absolutely brilliant, but it just shows you sort of the character and the resilience of the man. And he's got a lot of credit in the bank for what he did last season. And some fans will say, "Oh, it doesn't count for anything now." Fucking does count for everything. He's got his back in the Champions League, and his sort of balanced, and every time he does a press conference, he's analytical, he's balanced. He doesn't get too high when we win. He doesn't get too down when we lose. His attention to detail is what is needed, I think, to get us through this rough period. And he did this last season around the cup time, where we lost Liverpool, lost in the cup, and then lost to Man City. We lost 3 games in a row to good teams, and then that happened last season. Then we came back from that, and I'm sure we're going to do the same thing again. And he's a fantastic manager, and he's going to come out of this season probably a much better manager than what he did when he went into it, and that's going to stand us in good stead for the future.
All right, yeah, absolutely. So if hopefully no one's turned off this video and typed in -17. If you're still with us, watch -17 after you've watched our one. But it actually reminds me of a good motto that I've seen, and lots of people probably hear it. There's no such thing as a loss. It's you win or you learn. And I think that over the last 3 weeks, especially, he's learned a lot, and he's going to be a lot better manager from, like you said, going through these hiccups against really good teams with really good managers as well, and stuff like that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Mad Dog seems like the type of guy, them little teeth that you can wind up and they just chatter. I reckon he might have just got one of them and put them on his desk just to even just light the fuse under him, and just to get that, like a Klopp set of teeth just chattering away at him. So just to really sharpen his focus over the next couple of weeks while we haven't got any games on. The next point we want to talk about, well, I'll talk about this, is first of all the form of Anthony Gordon. He said himself, he come with high hopes at the back end of January last year with a reported £40 million price tag as well. And I think it was fair to say that he didn't really set the world on fire that sort of back end of the season as well. And since we didn't I think we all thought it, Jack, but we didn't really talk about it, was how hard it is coming from a really poor club in Everton to a team like we were at the time. We were high octane, we were high intensity and all that, which really suits the way he plays. He just physically wasn't capable of getting to them levels when he come to us. And he's since admitted that. I'm pretty sure, was it straight after the Chelsea game? I think he admitted that as well, that he wasn't quite there, and he wasn't where he needed to be to perform in the team. And he got that goal against Chelsea, and it kind of seems like that was the sort of leg up he needed. He went to the under-23 Euros, was a player of the tournament when England won that tournament, and then he's come back to us at the start of the year. He's probably been our best player over the first 4 games as well. So that's a massive reason to be positive. And I think we forget this guy's only a young kid. He's performing probably to his contract at the moment, if not just over what we paid for him. And his scope for improvement's massive. So he's something to really get excited about as well.
He was outstanding against Liverpool in that Liverpool game. I feel sorry for him because he was so good, but that's going to be forgotten because of what happened. But he was absolutely electric in that game. And
even that first game against Aston Villa, he was causing problems everywhere.
There were flashes from him last season, and he was doing some good defensive work. But like you said, he admitted he wasn't fit. He'd been coached by Frank Lampard for a while, so he needed the summer to get up to speed. And luckily he's done that. And he seems like a good character as well. Like, he seems like a grounded character, and he only sleeps with one pillow as well, which I'm very pleased about, because I sleep with one pillow too.
Yeah, okay. Well, we can't all be one pillow bandits. Some of us like a bit of comfort around our neck and head and things like that. But yeah, so he's definitely something to be positive about this year. The second one is we'll talk about Sandro Tonali. His first game was absolutely incredible for a bloke who's never played in the Premier League before. And for some reason or another, Jack, and I'm not sure if anyone's cracked this code yet, but Italian players in the Premier League just don't seem to work for one reason or another. I've got no idea why or what it is, because there's been some absolutely fantastic players who have played at Italy at a really high level for a really long time, and they've come to the Premier League and they just can't get to that level for one reason or another. So the fact that he's come in seems to be settled in really well with his beautiful wife, and I just had to get the beautiful part in there. That's another positive. We might have to change this to 11, but the way he's adapted to the Premier League as well. And I know there has been maybe a couple of teething issues with him and Bruno, particularly in the midfield. But when you sort of look at how Italian players have generally come to the Premier League and performed, I think they've got a real winner here as well.
Yeah. There's, like you said, the balance isn't quite right there in the midfield, and it's interesting that sort of Longstaff has not been present for all of our, or hasn't started all of our worst defeats over the last year or so. So he's obviously not anywhere near as good as Tonali or Bruno, but it just shows you like it's going to take time for that midfield balance to kind of sort itself out, and which it will, because it's packed full of quality players. So, and Tonali is definitely against Villa is absolutely amazing. So he's got class oozing out of him. You'll just take a bit of time to,
he's
adapt
amazing.
to the system.
Yeah, so it's not so much of a Sandro Tonali problem. It's more of an Eddie Howe problem to figure out how all this is going to work. But I think he's definitely, and same again, he's in that age bracket where he's still going to have hopefully 10 really, really good years with us and continue with us on our trajectory forward. You can have number 5, Jack, the depth.
Yeah, so the squad depth is something that we've been talking about probably as we were making signings through the summer. And then you just have to look at the bench for the games that we've had. It's really good. The squad depth is really, really good. There's 3 of the new signings that haven't even started a game yet because the team's been quite consistent. But there's options on the bench to change every game. And people complain about the subs that we've made, but nobody was complaining after the Aston Villa game where Barnes and Wilson came on.
It was a positive. It was great.
Yeah, and Barnes scored one.
These 2 on.
Scored one, set up one, should have had another assist. So, and even against Liverpool, Barnes should have really passed it to Wilson when they were through on goal, and that would have been another masterstroke. So it just shows you those fine margins. But yeah, like you've got Lewis Hall, who was called up to the England squad to train with them. So he's going to be coming into the team soon, I would think. Livramento, if he can, get a few games, if Trippier gets a rest. So these players are going to be starting. Wilson's probably due a start. Anderson had an amazing preseason. He's due a start. Longstaff's coming back. So yeah, the depth all over the team and the squad is excellent. And another point on that is that we've got players at the moment who were fantastic last season, who are really underperforming this season, or over the last 3 games have not been performing at their usual levels. So that's kind of Pope. Trippier as well hasn't been as good. Cher hasn't been as good, and he doesn't look as good without Botman in there. Bruno has copped a bit, but he hasn't been as good as what he was last season. Joe Linton and Isak as well, apart from the Villa game.
Yeah, I was going to say the Slim Reapers had a quiet.
It's been quiet. So like they've all been fairly underwhelming compared to last season, but that's a good thing in a way, because they're going to get better, and when they do, like we've been losing narrowly apart from Brighton, but we've been losing games narrowly, and those players have not really been firing. So when they do, and when they get the confidence back, there was a goal against Villa, which was, I think it was Wilson's goal. The passing play in the middle of the pitch was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah,
it was kind of like overlooked a bit, probably because we scored so many goals. But I've never actually seen us score a goal with that intricate, amazing passing in the middle of the park.
We're used to copying them once.
Yeah, so like that was the team playing with confidence when we're already winning and we had a few goals. So when these players, even if a couple of them start finding some form again, which they will. Like I said, they're brilliant players. The whole team's going to improve, and it's going to be a lot easier to do that against weaker teams who we've got coming up.
Yeah, and just on that as well, like I know, especially probably the first 5 or 6 games, or probably the first 5 games, you don't really, I guess, use your depth as much because it's a week between games. You get a full week of training, recovery, all that sort of stuff. But we're really going to see the value of it probably in the next 2 months when there's cup games and Champions League games and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure most of us would feel pretty confident if any of the 11 that started against, say, Brighton had to get replaced at some stage, whether it's rest, injury, and stuff like that. And like you just quickly go through them, like Dubravka and Pope. You know, I know Pope's a little bit better, but the drop down to Dubravka's not massive. And then maybe if Trippier misses, he's obviously going to be a big loss as well. But Livramento's no mug. Like he's a really good player. The only question mark, I guess, is probably with Lascelles at centre back, and if Byrne had to play there as well. But I mean, there was plenty of people on Twitter calling for Hall to start against Brighton. So, like, I think people have already got confidence in him, and I'm sure if you put Longstaff or Anderson into that midfield at some stage, if one of the other 3 starters had to rest, no one would have an issue with that at all. Like I have also read things like people want Longstaff to start, and that's fine and great. And like I said, Anderson had an absolutely ripping preseason, so he's in good nick. And he's also showed a bit when he's come on as well. His development over the last 12 months has been huge. And then it seems like at the moment there's a never-ending argument about whether Gordon should start, should Barnes start, should Almiron start, where does Wilson, can maybe Isak play on the left and Gordon plays on the right and Wilson through the middle. Like there's so many different interchangeable options they've got up there, which is a testament to the depth, which is going to be really utilised, especially in the next kind of 6 weeks once their sort of 2-a-week games start kicking off. So like I said, you're not going to get, you might not appreciate it fully now, but you'll definitely start appreciating it when the games come 2 a week. And good luck to anyone who has to pick 11s from like a predicted 11 from game to game once that starts, because no one will know what's going on. So,
and this goes back to what I was saying about Eddie as well, and the decisions it's gonna be hard for him to know which combination of those good players to pick in which game. And this is all part of the learning he's doing, because this is the first time in his career he's really had a real like top level squad with the depth. And I guess that's what sets elite managers apart from very good managers, is how they manage big squads, how they manage egos, how they keep everybody happy. Because that was such a big part of the story last season, was the confidence and the camaraderie in the team, even when players out who weren't playing were happy, you know, like Lascelles and Murphy and guys like that. So that's the big thing for him this season. But like I said, we've got so many games. There's going to be at least 44 games, no, at least 46 games this season. That's if we get knocked out the cups at the first stage as well. And I think between now and maybe December, there's only a run of 2 Premier League games in a row. So there's always a cup game or a Champions League game. Yeah. So people are worrying about like players being unhappy about not starting. They're going to be getting plenty. Everyone's going to be getting plenty of starts. Don't need to worry about that.
Everyone will be happy. So the squad ties into our number 6 thing, Jack. It's the academy, and it seems to be I don't know if it's the rebirth. It's probably just the normal birth of the academy, because it's never really born, and it's given the lack of, I guess, attention and funding that was directed towards it in the past. It's still astonishing that we've probably produced 3 really good players out of the academy in Andy Carroll, Sean Longstaff, and now Elliot Anderson, considering how under-resourced and seemed like more of a burden than a help. But now it feels like every second day we're signing some 16 or 17-year-old kid, and a lot of them are youth English internationals. Now, I know that might not seem like much, and they're only young, so we'll see what happens. But the fact that they have been selected in these squads obviously means they can play a bit. So, yeah, I'm going to be really positive about the academy and how it's another thing we might not bear the fruit of it this year or next year, but it's definitely something that we can look towards. And let's be realistic, like they're not all going to walk in and come into our first team, but they're going to help a lot when it comes to things like FFP. If we can get into a position like Manchester City, who are flogging these academy kids who have played maybe 1 or 2 cup games for 15, 20 million pounds, and then throw a little sell-on clause in there as well, or a buyback clause. So, yeah, you can have him for 20 million, but hey, shit, if he turns out really good, we're going to bring him back. So you have to, So we're just setting ourselves up to be like ultra sustainable for many, many, many years down the road as well, which is really, really cool to see.
It's low risk signings, isn't it? Because they're not expensive, these players. We seem we've signed half of the Ireland under 16 or under 17 team or whatever it is. A couple of them were playing in Milan, actually. I don't know how they ended up over there, but
I think they'll be wearing that green kit for the next 3 years. They've requested the green away kit for the next 3 years.
But it's got Dan Ashworth all over it. You know, we're probably going to talk about him and some of the other executives a bit later, but it's got his fingerprints. This is what he's done with Brighton, and just look at some of the kids they get coming through. Like you said, like nobody's wanted to buy our academy players that weren't good enough for us in recent years, because if they're not good enough for us, they're not going to be worth any money for anyone else. So, and the Andy Carroll thing back in the day was a freak where Liverpool got that money for Torres, so they needed to buy someone. So, like it's all part of the long-term project, and is definitely another big reason to feel positive and enthusiastic about what's going on at the club.
Yeah, so like we said, even if none of them end up playing in our first team, the fact is that we'll be able to sell it for a nice profit to sort of help with our FFP stuff is something to be really positive about as well. All right, we'll kick along to number 7, mate. We'll keep this rollicking along.
Yeah. So it kind of relates to FFP as well, and that's the commercial deals that the club have been doing. There was the one with Seller, first of all. So the value of that was, what was that, 25 million or something?
Reportedly 20, 25, around there.
So for me, it's just nice to have like Fun 88 or, you know, Wonga and all those other shit ones that don't look good on the front of the
sharks. No more sharks on the front.
Yeah. So obviously this is it's a Saudi company, but if you watch the documentary, the Amazon documentary, the Amazon PR job, really, which it was, they're kind of talking about they're talking about the fact that there was 1,000 companies or something interested in the shirt sponsorship, and they selected this one because it's a sports marketing company. Obviously it's in Saudi, so they're going to try and go for the Saudi market. But there's the alignment in the whole club, and there's obviously the Adidas deal, which everyone's really excited about. It just fits. Newcastle and Adidas just go well together. And that's another big commercial deal as well. It's, I think, 40 million over three seasons or something. It's 40 million a season. So it's about half of what Man United get, but it's a hell of a lot more than what Castor were paying us. So it's all aligned. It's the alignment of it all. You know, the Saudi already manufacture the Saudi national kits as well, Adidas. So it's all the sort of, as well as the money coming in and the assistance that's going to give with FFP. It's all of the alignment in the club, and the fact that you've got smart people who are in place, who are pulling these deals together. And there's probably going to be a lot more to come. There could be something with the stadium. Training ground's a good one, because no one's got an emotional tie to a training ground, so they can sponsor that for whatever they want.
I do. So, I've got a strong emotional.
Because you visited. You've got a little story about that, haven't you? But
we'll save that for another pod. But it's a
so the commercial activity, I think, is something to be pleased about, and the fact that they're kind of, with Adidas anyway, they've sort of listened to what most fans kind of want in that regard, and it's just signs of a serious club again, a serious club making good business deals and good deals for for the status and the reputation of the club.
Yeah. So even like just circling back to the Seller stuff, like I'm not sure if no one sort of really knows what they're into. They're like Jack said, they're a marketing company. So when you see like your Tyson Furies and all your sort of big heavyweight boxing fights in Saudi Arabia and your WrestleManias and all them other big events, they're basically the company who's putting them all on. So they'll have all these big fancy things for the lead ups to them events and during the events, outside the events and everything like that. I think they started talks this week maybe about a bit of a fan engagement zone in the strawberry, behind the strawberry there, that land that the club brought back. So that's going to turn into a bit of a fan zone for before the games, during the games as well. I think you remember what's that joint in London that with the shipping containers and that, where they always seem to be watching
it's called
the games.
The box park thing, you mean?
Box park, yeah. Like they might end up making something like that outside the ground as well, where everyone can watch the game. And then obviously the Adidas stuff doesn't need any further going on. It's massive for the club. I've said this when they got announced. So I've never seen a sports team so enamored with an apparel supplier in my whole life in any sport. It's frightening, and it's always been that way. Like it doesn't matter which. Like if Newcastle score a goal and they pan to the crowds going nuts, you could see probably 20% still have all Adidas kits on, and it hasn't been sponsored for nearly 20 years or something like that. They haven't been. Oh no, I don't think it was 20, maybe 15 years. They haven't been sponsored by Adidas yet. Everyone still has the kits and still wears the kits to every game. So there's that attachment, and it's like getting back with your old girlfriend, I think they said on the documentary. So that's massive as well. Number 8, it's the running of the club. So we don't want to get bogged down into what's happened in the past and stuff like that. But the fact that the club is actually running like a proper club now, and it was sort of mentioned a bit on the Amazon PR stunt, as you've called it, Jack, is the off-field stuff's actually trying to catch up to the on-field stuff, which rarely happens. It's normally the other way around, where they're sort of putting all these things in place and then the on-field stuff has to try and catch up. So it's just the fact that even I've just read a couple of things here, is like we've got a CEO, a CFO, so it's chief executive officer, chief financial officer, and the director of football, and they're actually 3 separate people, which is absolutely
revolutionary,
unheard of around these parts. So and there's so many other people underneath them now who report to them, and I don't know how many people are in the scouting department at the moment, because there was a bloody every day there for about 2 weeks. It was someone's been added into the scouting, and he's going to go over here, and she'll go over there, and he's looking after like South America. It was bonkers. But instead of probably they're watching YouTube clips of players and say, "Oh yeah, he looks all right. How much is he?" And or you get the joke in here looking at a player that actually plays for the club he was played for anyway. Yeah. So the fact that the club is getting run now, and I don't know if it was on a podcast or a documentary with Craig Silverstone, where he was referring to his time at Arsenal, and their commercial department was upwards of around 200, and then I think we had about 5 at that stage. I think we're up to about 40 now. I think he mentioned, like I said, I can't remember if that was on a podcast or
it was on the documentary, I think.
On the documentary, yeah. So like all this stuff is just, it's not like big, it's just what's required. Like it seems like it's just the basic sort of fundamentals of how to properly run a football club off the field.
Yeah, and it's getting the right people into those positions as well. Like
that's also massive.
Look at Man United. Like we talk about them a bit, but they haven't got the right people into these high power positions, and then that just seeps into the whole club. Like there was a process behind getting Darren Eales and Peter Silverstone, and particularly Dan Ashworth, particularly who. They cherry-picked him and they waited for him because they knew he was the guy we needed based on his previous work. And you can just see when he started, he explained that he's kind of in the middle of the spider web and everyone else is around him, all the different departments and
all the spokes on the bike.
And that's exactly what you can see is happening with what's going on. So we said at the time, I think, he could be the most important signing that Newcastle make, and you can't overestimate the importance of getting good people into these key positions. And I'll use that word again, the alignment of everybody. There's a clear identity of where the club wants to go. Everyone's buying into the same vision, and that's kind of obvious with what goes on, and that doesn't change because we've lost 3 games to good teams.
No, we're talking about a structure and a club and everything like that. So we'll kick along to number 9, mate. We've got the infrastructure.
Yeah, so it kind of ties in with that. We're talking sort of bigger picture stuff now, but that's good because that's what it's all about. The infrastructure. So I was really struck in the documentary and the PR exercise when they said they were talking about how the fact they'd put 10 million into the training ground, which needed it, to be honest, because it looked like a leisure centre.
Yeah. That was generous.
So it looks good now. You know, they've got all of the facilities for the players, and the canteen looks
Yeah.
nice. And
Yeah,
even
but just
even
remember
Sandra's
when
girlfriend was
yeah, I was gonna
impressed.
say Mrs. Tenali loved
Yeah,
it. She could believe it when she walked in.
yeah. So there's the infrastructure like that. That just shows as much as anything that they're just dropping 10 million on something that's going to be bulldozed in a couple of years. You know, that
Yeah.
it's chicken feed to our owners, so they don't care about that. It's all about trying to give the right conditions for success right now, and even though they are going to be moving somewhere else, and that's another exciting thing. The training ground, like the way the Saudis operate, they don't do things by halves. If they want something, they've got the money, they're just going to go and do it. So money's going to be no object. So we're probably going to have the best training ground in the world, which is going to attract players. The St James's Park as well. There's going to be stuff going on with the stadium. The club issued a share for 60 million or something today.
Yeah,
So I
I
don't know
didn't
if
mention
that.
that was me. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
tell
I
you
don't know if
guys.
that could be related to
Yeah, I
something to
forgot to
do with
tell
the
you I bought that
infrastructure.
last night.
You bought it, yeah. There you
Yeah,
go.
sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that.
You can build a training ground. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, and not anymore. I've just lost 60 million.
But yeah, like all of that, like it's the big vision, future, like the big picture stuff. Like the club is trying to catch up with the on field success, which happened far quicker than anybody anticipated it to. But it will get there. It will get there in time. And I've said this quite a few times, but like Peter Silverstone said on a podcast, the club will be in a better position at the end of this season, regardless of where we finish in the league, as long as we don't get relegated, obviously, than what we are this season. You know, so we could be out of the Champions League, but we're still going to be in a better position in the big picture than where we are right now, where it's all a bit sort of soon. It's all a bit sort of soon and unexpected, the position we're in, which raises expectations, which is partly what's caused people to be a bit disappointed lately. But yeah,
Yeah,
the infrastructure, the training ground, the stadium, all of this is to come, and that's exciting.
yeah, and which kind of rolls into our last point, mate. So it's the long term. I guess it's a long term plans and visions that the ownership have of the club. So let's not get bogged down in the 3 weeks of what some might say are bad results and stuff like that. Actually take the blinkers off and have a look into the future. Like these blokes have got money to absolute burn, like, and they can spend it. Whatever we do with the club is not really bound by FFP. The only thing that's bound by FFP is the actual player movements and stuff like that. So the documentary, like they've clearly outlined their plans to be number one. So they don't, they're not, the minimum expectation is sort of where they are now, and let's just keep building and building and building and building like that. And the resources these guys have are endless. Like, so with, like you said, the training ground, which is probably, they would have already started working where they want to build it and stuff like that, and organising that part of it. Like I shudder to see what this thing is going to, like you said, this could be just a whole golden bloody center. Like
Palace.
Like it could be frightening. Like it'll be, like, I agree. It's probably going to be when they build it, it'll be the best in the world, because that's how these guys operate. Like it is. And I think it got mentioned kind of when the takeover first happened, like them and sort of Dubai, Abu Dhabi, all them sort of oil states, if you want to call it them. It's just a big pissing contest between them all. To see who, like they'll see the Man City stuff, and I've got no idea what PSG's sort of facilities are, but they'll definitely see the Man City stuff and go, right, let's make it better than this. And I've seen some of their stuff. It's state of the art plus, and these guys will be, whatever that is, they'll make that look like absolute. I'll make the Man City one look like our old facility by the time they've built this new one. Like it's absolutely unreal what it's going to be. And
these guys bought golf. They bought golf, which is
yeah.
fucking outrageous. Like,
what about the meeting? What could we spend all this money on if it's sold? You see our chairman. Golf.
Let's just buy golf. They're in the process of buying football as well with their pro league. So, like, it's with other, fair enough. You can't really, they're doing it for their own reasons. Let's not have any illusions about that. They didn't grow up watching Alan Shearer and all that shit. They are doing this because they're trying to diversify their economy. They're trying to get into more pro-social entertainment, so people stay in their own country. I've listened to read quite a lot about this. So and yes, they're doing it because they want to do some sports washing as well. Yeah, so let's not be under any illusions that that's what this is about. But they've got endless resources, and when they do something, they do it well. And they've sat there and they've said from the beginning, we want to be number one, we want to be successful. Nothing that they've ever done in the history of that country suggests that when they decide that and when they start putting money into something, that doesn't happen. So they've bought golf. So I think making a football club successful is probably going to be pretty easy compared to buying out the PGA.
Yeah. I really like it if they brought tennis.
If they brought tennis,
just ran it into the ground, so we didn't have to watch tennis anymore. That'd be great.
Timmy that. Timmy would be upset.
I know. Yeah, I know. They could buy his what's he play? The bazooka.
The bazooka.
Or whatever it is. Yeah. That probably we won't get into Saudis buying bazookas. That's probably not the right angle.
The UK government buy bazookas.
We'll let them do it instead. That's a good point. But yeah, that's 10. So there you go, everyone. If you're on your morning commute or you're at home watching TV and you've come across this fantastic podcast, or you're on your morning run, you're taking your kids for a walk or your dog for a walk, whatever you're doing, hopefully these 10 things have sort of put a pep in your step and you've exhaled a little bit and the dark clouds are broken up and you can see a little bit of, maybe just a little ray of sunshine just squirting through on you and enriching you a little bit. So hopefully Jack and I tonight have just brought a little bit of positivity to the whole situation. And it's easy to get bogged down in the semantics and 3 losses, but there's plenty of things to be good about. You've just got to choose which way you want to be, Jack.
Absolutely. And I'm always, after, we've avoided his name so far, but after the previous owner, and people hate it when you say this because it's different now. It's a different regime and, we're judged by different standards. But like you say about the AFL, my cup's full still. I think it will be for a long time.
Yeah. It's just a shame we couldn't get Lee on here because we know he's the most positive guy in the group. So unfortunately, he wasn't available for tonight. But that'll do, Jack. I hope that we've put maybe, if not a smile, at least a smirk on people's faces. Just it's not that bad, guys. Let's be happy with what we've got and look at everything that's good in our lives.
Absolutely.
All right. So we'll be back next week, I think, with a preview for the Brentford game as well. If your international team's playing over the weekend, hopefully they have a positive result for you and maybe you can get a win back in that capacity. Or if another sporting team you follow is playing over the weekend, hopefully you can see a win there and that'll make you feel better as well, mate. So good luck to the Lions too, Jack, tomorrow night.
Yeah, big one.
Big one against the Power. I'll be on the Lions. Port can go and get rooted. So, that'll do. Thanks everyone for watching. We didn't mention at the start, but we'd love you to comment if we've missed some positive stuff that you want to mention as well. Chuck it in the comments, and we'll be getting around that for sure. So, thanks very much, Jack, and we'll catch you next time, mate.
Cheers. Have a good one.